You think intelligence is real, that some people are just smarter than others. You're wrong. Intelligence is a made-up concept that ruined education, careers, and entire lives. And in the next 10 minutes, I'll prove that what you call intelligence is just a story we agreed to believe. By the end of this video, you'll understand why IQ, grades, and everything you were told about being smart is a social construct with no scientific basis. This isn't motivational fluff. This is backed by research from Harvard, Stanford, and neuropsychology labs worldwide. And once you see how intelligence actually works, every time you called yourself stupid, every person you thought was a genius, every test score that defined your life, all of it becomes questionable. But before we get there, let me tell you about the man who invented the IQ test and what he said about it. In 1905, Alfred Binet created the first intelligence test, not to measure innate ability to identify children who needed extra help in school, specific help, temporary support. He explicitly warned, the scale, properly speaking, does not permit the measure of intelligence because intellectual qualities are not superposable and therefore cannot be measured as linear surfaces are measured. Translation: intelligence isn't one thing. You can't measure it with a number. Then American psychologists took his test, ignored his warnings, and created the IQ test. They said it measured fixed genetic intelligence. They used it to justify eugenics, to sterilize people, to segregate schools, to deny immigrants entry to America. Most people believe intelligence is a real, measurable thing. Some people are born smart, some aren't. IQ tests reveal your cognitive capacity. High scores mean success, low scores mean struggle. But here's what's really happening. We invented a narrow definition of intelligence, built a test around it, and then convinced everyone the test was discovering something real instead of creating it. IQ tests don't measure intelligence. They measure how good you are at taking IQ tests. In 2011, neuroscientists at Western University conducted the largest intelligence study ever. 100,000 participants, 12 cognitive tests, brain imaging. The goal: find the single factor of general intelligence that IQ supposedly measures. They couldn't find it. Instead, they found at least 3 distinct types of cognitive ability: short-term memory, reasoning, and verbal ability. Each one independent, each one using different brain networks. No single intelligence factor. You can be brilliant at pattern recognition and terrible at memory, exceptional at verbal reasoning and awful at spatial tasks. There's no unified intelligence, just a bunch of different mental skills that don't correlate the way IQ tests assume they do. But here's the kicker. IQ tests are weighted towards certain skills: abstract reasoning, pattern matching, vocabulary, skills that correlate with Western education and middle-class upbringing. A study in Kenya tested children using a Western IQ test. They scored poorly. Then researchers created a test based on knowledge actually useful in their environment: identifying medicinal plants, tracking animals, understanding weather patterns. The low IQ kids destroyed it. The high IQ, Western kids would have failed. Intelligence isn't a property of your brain. It's a judgment about which skills a particular culture values. You're not smart or dumb. You're skilled at things your environment rewards and unskilled at things it doesn't. That's not intelligence. That's cultural fit. But it gets worse. Your intelligence changes based on what you believe about it. Carol Dweck at Stanford ran a simple experiment. She gave 2 groups of students a test. Both groups did well. Then she praised them. Group 1, you must be really smart. Group 2, you must have worked really hard. Then she gave them a harder test. They could choose an easy version or a challenging one. The smart group chose the easy test. They didn't want to risk looking dumb. The hard work group chose the challenge. They wanted to learn. Then she gave everyone a genuinely difficult test where everyone struggled. The smart group gave up faster. Their performance dropped. They felt defeated. The hard work group persisted. Their performance improved. One word, smart, destroyed motivation. Because if you believe intelligence is fixed, failure means you're not smart. So you avoid challenges. You stop trying. Your actual cognitive performance declines. This is called fixed mindset versus growth mindset, and it's been replicated hundreds of times. Your belief about intelligence changes your actual cognitive ability. Think about every time you said, "I'm not a math person," or "I'm not creative." That wasn't a fact about your brain. That was a story that became a ceiling. Meanwhile, someone with average cognitive ability but a growth mindset outperforms someone with high IQ who believes ability is fixed. Intelligence isn't what you have, it's what you believe you can develop. The label is the limitation. And here's the most disturbing part. The people we call geniuses aren't more intelligent. They just had better circumstances. K. Anders Ericsson studied expert performers for decades, chess masters, musicians, athletes. He found that what separates world-class performers from average ones isn't innate talent. It's deliberate practice, thousands of hours. Specific feedback, optimal challenge, the genius. Violinist practiced 10,000 hours by age 20. The average violinist practiced 4,000. Same starting ability. Different opportunities to practice. But we ignore the 10,000 hours and call it genius. Natural talent. Intelligence. Mozart started composing at age 3 because his father was a music teacher who drilled him daily. Einstein struggled in school, worked as a patent clerk where he spent years thinking about physics problems. Steve Jobs dropped out of college but audited calligraphy classes that later influenced Apple's design. None of them scored off the charts on IQ tests. They had circumstances that allowed obsessive focus on their interests. Think about every person you admire. How much of their success is intelligence, and how much is access, good schools, supportive parents, free time to explore, mentors, economic stability, the luxury of failure without catastrophic consequences. A kid in poverty with the same brain as a genius wouldn't become a genius. They'd be working, surviving, managing trauma. The brain is the same. The circumstances aren't. We don't celebrate intelligence. We celebrate privilege and call it merit. So what does all this mean? Here's the truth about intelligence. It's not a real, measurable, fixed thing. It's a collection of learnable skills that develop through practice, shaped by environment and opportunity, and labeled based on cultural values. What does this mean for you? Stop identifying as smart or dumb. Start identifying skills you want to develop. Stop avoiding challenges because you might fail. Start seeing failure as data. Stop comparing your intelligence to others. Start comparing your skills today to your skills last year. This isn't depressing. It's liberating. You're not limited by your IQ. You're not just not a math person. Your brain is plastic, changeable. Every skill you think requires intelligence just requires practice under the right conditions. Intelligence is the story. Effort, strategy, and opportunity are the reality. You're not fixed. You're in progress. And that changes everything about what you're capable of. So in 10 minutes, I destroyed your belief in intelligence and hopefully freed you from its limitations. If this changed how you see your own potential, hit that like button. And if you want to see your understanding of talent destroyed next, that video drops next week. I'm going to prove that natural ability is a myth we tell to avoid the truth about practice. Subscribe so you don't miss it. See you there.